Grade 9, Much Ado About Nothing, amazing analysis and essay plans for free. In this episode, we'll be looking at female sexuality. I'll be sharing my grade 9 essay, so listen up for some good terminology, ideas, and quotes for you to steal. So in this video, we'll be looking at the overall thesis and 3 individual points. Here is my thesis about female sexuality within the play. There is an underlying precedent regarding male anxiety surrounding the nature of women's sexuality, rooted from Act 1, Scene 1, which lamentably, which means unfortunately for Hero and the female characters, enlarges into the crux of the plot. So what I mean by that is there's this underlying trepidation and fear throughout Much Ado About Nothing that women are going to be unfaithful. And it starts off small, but it enlarges into such a big crux of the plot. When in reality, quoting the title reveals to be nothing but a remaining contemporary male consternation, like male fear. Hence, there is a sense of male uneasiness, and it's very implicitly cited from all of the male characters. You can find things within every different character's speech which highlights how they are being very uneasy about women, and within their dialogue talking about cuckoldry and things, but more explicitly delivered through Claudio's gullibility, which feeds into his insecurity regarding women's fidelity and reputation, because we saw that Claudio so easily believed that he was cheated on. So let's look at point 1, which is the motif of cuckoldry. So what actually is a cuckold? Let's look at that. So a cuckold is in a very old term that's used to describe a man whose wife is sexually unfaithful. And it's symbolized by the horns, as you can see on the left-hand side, like the bull horns on your head. And it's symbolized in how it's very ugly to look at on your head, to have horns on your head, and also everybody can see it except the person itself who's wearing the horns, which is suggesting how everybody can see how your wife is being unfaithful except yourself. So it was an idea of embarrassment for males being able to interact with the very untrustworthy women. Now, before I go any further into my essay, how do you think that the cuckold links with the plot of Much Ado About Nothing? The idea of women being unfaithful. Let's go into this now. So this is my point about the motif of cuckoldry, which is just a continued idea of there being this cuckold. Cuckoldry is often a source of comedy in the male characters' witty exchanges. Remember that Much Ado About Nothing is actually a comedy. The prince acknowledges Hero, "I think this is your daughter," to which Leonardo responds with a quip about his daughter's legitimacy. He says, "Her mother has many times told me so." Therefore, there is an underlying sense of mistrust towards women rooted from the very beginning of the play. The pronoun her distances the married parents and couple as opposed to my wife, which relays how imbalanced there is in terms of equality within expectations and fidelity, that there is clearly a double standard. Continuing on with point 1, Don Pedro says to Benedick, "The savage bull doth bear the yoke." This image acts as a symbol for marriage throughout the play. Just as the free and proud bull is broken and turned by the farmer, the bachelor shares this in responsibility as a married man, hinting that marriage is not a gift but more a defeat towards men. The bull's horns are a secondary image linking to the cuckold whose wife cheated and was depicted with horns that everybody could see, the shame but him. There is an altogether sense that the image of the cuckold suggests that marriage, or even specifically women, robs a man of their freedom and turns him into a beast of burden, carrying the risk of cuckold like shame. We see a certain type of resistance towards this through the character of Benedick. Pluck off the bull's horns and set them in my forehead. In this refusal, he groups marriage with a woman's infidelity, which presents marriage as an overall loss for men, being a looming and inevitable threat of humiliation. The less comical and more darker depiction of male anxiety revolving around cuckoldry is seen where Hero is falsely accused, tarnishing her reputation. Leonato's brutal language in Act 4, Scene 1 for her alleged promiscuity. But mine, and mine I loved, and mine I praised, and mine that was not myself mine, valuing of her. The repetition of mine, this possessive pronoun, foregrounds the possessiveness that underlies the men's fear of losing control over their wives. Cuckoldry here alludes to the oppressiveness of contemporary gender roles and reputation. There's a very possessive product of the male's anxiety. Let's now move on to point 2. Claudio and his allusion to Roman goddesses. In Act 4, Scene 1, there is a massive length of dialogue in which Claudio alludes to Roman goddesses. The contradictory nature of women is highlighted by Claudio's allusion to Roman goddesses while berating Hero for her purposeful infidelity. You seem to me as Diane in her orb, as chaste as is the bud be blown, but you are more intemperate in your blood than Venus, all those pampered animals that rage in savage sexuality. Diane in her orb is referring to Diana, the virgin goddess of the hunt, and the moon, her orb, close bracket, Venus, and within the Roman goddesses' illusion, she represented love, beauty, desire, lust, etc. So Claudio uses similes to compare Hero's outward appearance to the chaste Diana, but her inward state as a very promiscuous Venus who was a goddess that was more sexual and overt about her desires. Now, the allusion to goddesses highlights the distinction between appearances and reality that the men seem to really struggle with. That it also plagues other characters throughout the play, particularly with regard to human sexuality. People can't tell, specifically men cannot, in this play, cannot tell the difference between a woman being purposefully unfaithful and just verbal communication about the possibility of it. Now, the fact that a woman's apparent loyalty cannot be trusted plagues male characters and illustrates the duality of women, and it is that men fear so much. Let's look at point 3, which is also linked to Claudio. It's his oxymoronic language, how he's so flippant, says one thing and then says another. Claudio criticizes Hero for her alleged infidelity. His use of oxymorons highlight the male anxieties surrounding women's fidelity that permits the play, and it also suggests that these anxieties are totally unfounded and uncalled for. He says, "If half thy outward graces had been placed about the thoughts and counsel of thy heart, farewell, thy pure impiety and thy impious purity." Claudio draws distinction between Hero's outward graces or beauty and her apparent unfaithful inner reality. This culminates in the final oxymoron, pure impiety and impious purity. The oxymoron highlights what Claudio perceives as the contradictory nature of women who deceive men into codes, Of course, this claim is entirely fake and fabricated, and it causes dramatic irony, because in fact, not a single woman in Much Ado About Nothing engages in adulterous behaviour that the men call them out for. And through this oxymoron, it reveals how the men's concerns with women's fidelity is completely unfounded and unnecessary. However, it would be a condemnation to Shakespeare's craft to suggest that this portrayal was one-sided, for through the minor character of the friar and his unevidenced yet absolute confidence and perception in Hero's fidelity, the audience learn how nothing is both a tool for deception and corruption, but also one for truth and innocence. And what I mean by that is just as Leonato and Claudio had no proof about Hero being unfaithful, but still accused her of it, so did the friar have no evidence of Hero being truthful and loyal. So nothing is important in both sides. So let's look at point 4, the friar's trust in Hero. The friar uses ethos to persuade Leonato of Hero's innocence, despite the allegations made against her. He says, "Trust not my reading, nor my observation. Trust not my age, my reference, my calling, nor my divinity. If this sweet lady lie not guiltless here." So we see anaphora being used, which is when there's a repetition of the beginning of a phrase, and it's being used as a method for rhetoric and persuasion. It emphasizes that the friar is positively using his authority and that his ideas should be trusted. The use of ethos suggests that he has an earnest and informed observation, and that people do have the capacity to provide for the truth. Point 5. Leonato's scathing accusations. Leonato deplores Hero's alleged infidelity in scathing language. His use of metaphors suggests that Hero has been permanently corrupted by both her infidelity and the resulting decline of her reputation. He laments, "She is falling into a pit of ink that the wide sea hath dropped too few to wash her clean again." This extended metaphor of sexual debauchery provides a very useful comparison. Connotations of there being written gossip and how Hero has been tainted by the propagation of rumours about her infidelity. And Leonato also declares how this story has been printed irrevocably into her blood and altered her reputation. Shakespeare underlies the pivotal role of sexuality in a human's reputation. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I hope you really appreciate the effort I've put into making this essay, and if you do find it helpful, make sure you subscribe. If you want all grade 9s like me, subscribe now to Know for GCSE.